Now, a little earlier, I spoke to Andy George, who's the president of the National Black Police Association, and I asked him what his reaction is to the firearms officers who are laying down their weapons.
Having carried that burden myself for 10 years within the Police Service of Northern Ireland, but I think the overarching feeling for me is saddened and disappointed. Saddened and disappointed at the timing of this action that's been taken. You know, some have described it as a protest, some that there are well-being concerns. I think the timing and the fact that this has happened before, where there have been threats of this nature, that people would remove their tickets, is the thing that really disappoints me. It's a privilege to carry a firearm. It's a heavy burden. It's something that not every police officer can do. But again, we have to be held to the highest standard possible. We have to be open to that scrutiny and accountability whenever somebody loses their life. So definitely disappointment.
You say that carrying a firearm is a heavy burden, and I guess that's what these officers would say. You know, it is a heavy burden, and there's an anxiety and nervousness that a split-second decision, and you could end up in jail. Do you understand why people might argue that case?
No, completely. But again, the thing that I would say is that's a wider debate. That has always been there. You know, I carry a firearm from I was 20 years old in PSNI. I've been a firearms officer from 2008 to 2018. So I completely get that. But even then, I knew what would happen if I had to discharge my firearm. I went out every day knowing that there was the potential for that to happen. I never wanted it to happen, and thankfully it didn't happen whilst I was working on duty. But I knew that what would follow, and we were well versed on it. So that hasn't changed, and I think the timing is the bit that is really going to send shockwaves, not just the firearms community, the policing community, but I think the wider public have a right to expect that we're held to the same standard. There is that old Pelian principle that the police are the public and the public are the police, and we should be held to the same account. There should not be another like almost two-tier system of justice within this.
Can I just ask what you mean when you say the timing of this? What do you mean by that?
The timing around that, the officer being charged with murder, the fact that a few days after that happened, the decision to hand down their firearms, that's the bit that doesn't sit well with myself. There may well be a wider debate around incorporating the unique position police officers find themselves in, but for me, the timing just after one of their colleagues is charged with murder, it just doesn't sit well. And for me, what has happened is Londoners across the city have been left less safe. They have been more open. Counter-terrorism operations haven't had the same capability. And that's the most concerning part for me. Certainly have the debate, but just do not do it in this manner and do it in the longer term. And particularly wait for the results of the murder inquiry or murder case to evolve within the court system, because that's when we should pull out any learning and we should be allowing due process to continue.
Talking about due process, the Home Secretary has tweeted about the event. She said, "We depend on our brave firearms officers to protect us from the most dangerous and violent in society," and then goes on to say they mustn't fear ending up in the dock for carrying out their duties. Officers risking their lives to keep us safe have my full backing. What do you make of the Home Secretary's tweet? Was it appropriate?
Feel it was appropriate, not in the circumstances, not with the timing. I think that could have happened behind closed doors. I think what we need to do is certainly support our firearms officers, listen to their concerns, but we also have to understand that somebody has just lost their life and there is a case ongoing. So I wouldn't want to get into detail. I wouldn't want to prejudice that investigation and that case which is going to unfold. I think now is not the time to be showing that support. Now is not the time to be taking out those learning points or reviewing armed policing in its entirety. I think there may well come a point once the evidence is presented in court, but that process must be left unabated. It must be fair, it must be independent, and it must be robust.
I just want to zoom out for a minute and look at some of the wider issues at play here. The case review found the Met Police to be institutionally racist and misogynistic, and it also found the Specialist Firearms Unit in particular to be not only overwhelmingly white and male, but to have a toxic culture of bullying, racism and sexism where normal rules do not seem to apply. How difficult do you think the police's relationship is with the black community in particular?
I think it's probably been its lowest. You know, we've had different points with the murder of Stephen Lawrence, the Stephen Lawrence inquiry and the report being put forward by Lord Macpherson. 6 months ago, Baroness Casey almost predicted the situation we're in now. She mentioned the fact that officers hold a disproportionate amount of power over their senior officers based on the fact that they can withdraw their authority to carry firearms. I think the fact that it has been a black male that's been involved in the incident exacerbates the issues. We have had a number of different things with Up Hutton, the issues at Charing Cross Police Station, Child Q. Confidence was already at its lowest. So I think now that the Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, coming out and asking for a lower threshold for the IOPC, we have to remember that the IOPC had to step in those investigations, and Baroness Casey reviewed the Met's own data and spoke to the Met's officers and staff to find out her report. The Met already knew that, and they didn't take any action by themselves.
And just finally, when you posted about this on Twitter, giving your own opinion that we've seen you express in this interview as well, and I'll be honest, I was pretty shocked to see some of the response that you received, some of the abuse, to be completely honest. Were you shocked by it?
Fortunately not. I put out a tweet like that, reasonably balanced given all of the facts. And as I said, anonymous police accounts, retired members come in, and all they're doing is showing the public exactly what the culture of policing can be. The policing can be the very best of us, but can it also be the very worst of us? And I think what we've seen in that Twitter feed, what we've seen in Baroness Casey and other reviews is the very worst of policing. And again, we need to understand that police culture needs to evolve. We need to be held to account, and having lower standards, that's not going to deal with it. We need to make sure that there's more independence, more accountability in policing to make sure that we deal with the many issues that have been laid out, not only in that Twitter feed, but in previous reviews.